Hello and welcome to Bear Talk, and today it's a pretty exciting day because Megan and I get to talk with Bob McDonald, who of course is a Canadian author and a science journalist. And this is the first time that I've actually brought notes on the show because there's a lot of awesome stuff about you and I don't want to miss anything because there is so many things. Now, first of all, you're the weekly host of Quirks and Quarks. On the way here, I had to practice saying that, quirks, because it's hard to actually say. Can you do it? You do it.
Quirks and Quarks?
Like quart of milk.
Quarts.
Like quart of milk.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
remember quarts?
so Quirks and Quarts of milk that he hosts every week
And
here.
you have 800,000 listeners.
At least,
weekly.
and then about another 500,000 online.
Wow.
At least, so we're well over 1.5 million per week.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have that many followers on our show yet.
A few,
but
almost.
tell us a little bit about that series and really what that means to you.
Well, the show's been on the air for, I think, we're in our 42nd year. I've only been hosting the show for 26 of those, so I'm still trying to get used to it. I'm the new guy. And there was another fellow named, you might have heard of him, named David Suzuki.
Yeah.
He was the first host for 2 years, then Jay Ingram, and then me. And what's amazing about the show, we only do science. That's all we do. And we're on Saturday at noon. We've always been in that spot, and our ratings have never changed in 42 years of broadcasting.
Really?
We've had other shows on either side of us come and go, but Quirks has always been there. So people obviously like science, and it's just amazing. People just want to know what's going on in the world of science. So it's a real privilege for me to work on the show, because every week is different. I talk to scientists from all over the world. Whoever published this week, whatever new discovery came out, they're talking to me. And I can't believe it sometimes that somebody just discovered some new galaxy out at the edge of the universe, or something new within the atom, or some new gene, or whatever it is. They're talking to me, so it's quite a privilege.
And obviously people love science. It's exciting once you realize what science, I think, actually can be. And what I mean by that is when I was in high school, science was my least favorite subject. But, yeah, yours too.
Yeah.
But in everyday life, it's the most exciting thing to actually learn about. Now, I teach high school. I don't know if you knew that. And I know in high school we really push post-secondary education, as we have for years. But one of the things that I also push for children is to find their passion. Because to me, that is what takes you far in life, well beyond school. So as much as I support post-secondary education, I support passion. And what I do know about you is you took the passion route towards science.
I did.
Not necessarily the post-secondary route. So you're an awesome example to kids that maybe post-secondary isn't really what they love, but how did you find your passion that now brought you here today to have 830,000 viewers?
Well, I grew up in the space age. The whole space program has happened within my lifetime. I'm that old. I dye my hair gray, by the way.
Of course.
So I remember Sputnik, the very first satellite in 1957. I was a kid, but I remember it. So I watched them walk on the moon. I've seen all of that space adventure. So to me, this getting off Earth and going to other worlds, and then finding that there are amazing places out there that are just as real as this Earth, but not the Earth. They're very different. Mars with its cold deserts, and Saturn with its rings, and Jupiter with its big storms. I knew all this stuff as a kid. So I've always been fascinated by space and science and the technology to get there. Problem was, when I got into school, I wasn't good at doing it. I like science, but I wasn't good at doing it. I'm not good at math or remembering formulas and doing all the nitty-gritty stuff. I was a terrible student. So I just kind of pushed my way through, and I did make it to university, but after second year, where I was studying English and philosophy, taking some science courses, but I majored in English and philosophy and did a lot of drama. I was good on stage. I liked performing, and so that was my thing. But after second year, which I failed, I dropped out, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And I worked construction, drove a truck, dug holes, made billboards, out on fields, and worked at the Toronto International Airport taking care of the signs that are inside up on the walls. That was my job. And I really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I thought that was going to be my lot in life because I come from that kind of background. Neither of my parents were educated. I come from a small town. We were not rich by any means. And so I figured, well, that's who I am. That's what I was going to be. So that's what happened to me in the early days.
How do you get into science without actually having a lot of educational background? It's just that you're just very curious and you ask a lot of questions, so you gain a lot of knowledge. How do you do that?
I took advantage of opportunities that were presented to me by friends and colleagues and mentors who said, hey, why don't you try this? You'd be good at that. And the very first opportunity that came to me actually came from my girlfriend when I was in my early 20s. in Toronto, there's a huge, big science center called the Ontario Science Center. It's one of the biggest in the world. And she worked there as a summer student. They hire students to host the public that comes in. And she tipped me off. She said, you know, when we go back to school, they have to hire full-time people to do the demonstrations. Standing people's hair up with static electricity, using a big Van de Graaff generator, operating this big laser, freezing flowers in liquid nitrogen, that kind of. She said, they're looking for people, and you'd be good, because you like science and you're good at theater. And she said, I'll introduce you to the guy who's hiring. So I drove my truck to the Science Center, and I went in and I met this guy. And fortunately, he had just come back from vacation. It was his first day back, so he hadn't looked at any of the applications in there, so he didn't even know who I was. Right. And I was there right at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I just talked his ear off. I said, this place is fabulous. I'd love to work here. And I love science, and I know, and it'd be just really great, and blah, blah, blah. And he just leaned back and he said, you're the kind of guy we'd like to have here. And he hired me on the spot.
So you really have to be the most eager, you have to have a bit of drama, and you have to love science.
That's right. Have a passion and see an opportunity and say, hey, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. So even though I wasn't technically qualified to do that, they like me. They like me on enthusiasm. Enthusiasm works. And then suddenly, overnight, I changed from a blue-collar uniform to a white lab coat, and I'm standing up on this big stage with all this huge electrical equipment, wowing kids with electricity and all. And I had to learn a lot really fast, but it was amazing, and it completely changed my life. And that's happened to me again and again and again. People have said, would you like to be on television? I appeared on the news one night because the news called up the Science Center. I was following a thing that landed on Mars. They said, could you come on the news tonight and talk about it? I said, sure. I'd never been on the news. So I came on, and I told them all about Mars. They said, yeah, we landed. Here are the pictures. It's really exciting. Here's what happened. Here's why it's important. They said, wow, you're really good. Do you want to come back and like be a regular guy here? I said, sure. And so then I started appearing on television programs, and word got out that there's this guy who talks well and knows science and is funny, and on it went. That's the story of my life.
You know, and I'm loving the story of your life, definitely, especially where I always think passion trumps qualifications.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to. You can be qualified, but you got to have the passion to love getting out of bed to do what it is you do. And just a last example here of what passion can do is I know you've received many, many awards, including from appointed as the Officer of the Order of Canada. But what I find even more fascinating is you're actually, there's a comet named after you.
An asteroid.
An asteroid.
Yeah,
an asteroid. Okay, sorry, an asteroid named after you. And when does that happen? It's not you're qualified for it, but there's got to be a passion that does that. So I love that, you know, you can be an example for kids that may not really know where to go and might be pressured to do post-secondary education, which I always do support. But you got to find a passion in life. That's what gets you through. So this has been Bear Talk. This has also been so much fun today. Megan, I love that we had our first guest today, and awesome. Bob, I love that it was you.
Thank you so much.
I'd also like to thank BCIT. We are coming to you today from their studios here on their Burnaby campus. And please click on the link right there, okay, for more information about our show, also about Bob and BCIT. And this has been Darren, Megan, and Bob from Bear Talk. See you next time.